My aunt stole my wedding venue, so I waited 2 years and booked her daughter's dream location first. When I got engaged to Derek, I was over the moon. We'd been together since college, and I'd been dreaming of our wedding for years. Derek had proposed on the beach where we'd had our first date, getting down on one knee as the sun set behind him. The ring was perfect, a vintage sapphire that had belonged to his grandmother, exactly what I'd always wanted instead of a traditional diamond. I had my heart set on the Rosewood Manor, this gorgeous historic estate with gardens that looked like something from a fairy tale. The place had sweeping marble staircases, crystal chandeliers imported from France, and rose gardens that bloomed year-round in climate-controlled greenhouses. The ballroom had floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a lake, and they allowed couples to have their ceremony in the garden pavilion that looked like it belonged in a romantic movie. It was booked solid for 2 years out, but I'd been calling every month since Derek proposed, hoping for a cancellation. The coordinator, Mrs. Patterson, had started recognizing my voice. "Still hoping for September, dear?" she'd ask kindly. September 15th specifically, I'd tell her every time. That's the anniversary of our first date. Finally, 8 months before our planned date, they called. Someone had canceled their September wedding, a nasty divorce where the bride had caught her fiancé cheating with her maid of honor. They had one weekend available. September 15th, exactly what we wanted. I screamed so loud Derek came running from the kitchen thinking something was wrong, still holding the spatula he'd been using to flip pancakes. "We got it," I sobbed into the phone with Mrs. Patterson. "We'll take it." "Wonderful, dear. I'm so happy this worked out for you. You've been so patient and persistent." I put down a $5,000 deposit immediately, using the credit card Derek and I had been saving on specifically for wedding expenses. We'd been living like college students for months, splitting grocery bills and avoiding restaurants to save every penny. That evening, I called my mom to share the news. This was the venue where I'd dreamed of walking down the aisle since I was 12 and attended my cousin Rebecca's wedding there. I'd spent the entire reception that night wandering the grounds, imagining my own someday. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful," she said, and I could hear the genuine joy in her voice. "Have you told the family yet?" I called everyone that night. Grandparents, cousins, my dad's sister Vivian. Everyone was thrilled for us. Vivian seemed especially excited, asking detailed questions about the venue, the date, even the specific package we'd chosen. "How much was the deposit?" she asked during our 20-minute conversation. "What's their cancellation policy? Do they require references or proof of income? What about insurance requirements?" I thought she was just being thorough, maybe considering the venue for her daughter Melody someday. Vivian was a successful corporate lawyer who specialized in contract disputes, always asking pointed questions about fine print and legal protections. I answered everything honestly, too excited to be suspicious. Looking back, I should have realized she was gathering intelligence. "The ceremony space holds up to 200 guests," I told her, "and the reception ballroom can accommodate 150 for dinner. We're planning on about 120 people total. What time is your ceremony scheduled for?" 4 o'clock, golden hour for photos, then cocktails on the terrace during sunset. She asked about catering options, floral arrangements, even which bridal suite I'd reserved for getting ready. I shared every detail, thrilled that someone in the family was taking such an interest in our wedding plans. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Rosewood Manor that would change everything. "Miss Rodriguez, I'm afraid there's been a terrible mix-up," Mrs. Patterson said, her voice strained and apologetic. She sounded like she'd been crying. "We accidentally double-booked September 15th. Another bride has the same date." My stomach dropped to the floor. The room started spinning. "But I have a signed contract. I put down a deposit 2 weeks ago. You called me personally." "Yes, well, the other party also has a contract. And their deposit was significantly larger, $15,000 compared to your 5. We're prepared to offer you a full refund plus $500 compensation for the inconvenience." $15,000? Who puts down $15,000 for a wedding venue? Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. "The other bride's mother is an attorney. She's claiming we made a verbal agreement for that date months ago and is threatening legal action if we don't honor it. We simply can't afford to fight this in court." "So you're breaking a signed contract to avoid a lawsuit from someone who's lying?" "I'm so sorry. This has never happened before. We'll put you at the top of our list for any future cancellations." I hung up, devastated. Derek found me sobbing on our couch, still in my work clothes, mascara streaking down my face. He held me while I cried for hours, stroking my hair and promising we'd find something even better. The next day, my mom called with a strange, uncomfortable tone in her voice. "Honey, I have something to tell you. Vivian's daughter Melody just got engaged." My blood ran cold. Melody was 24, had been dating her boyfriend Cameron for only 8 months, and had never shown any interest in marriage before. "When?" "Last week, right after you called the family about your venue, and she booked Rosewood Manor for September 15th. The pieces clicked into place like a puzzle from hell. Vivian had pumped me for information, then somehow convinced the venue to give her our date. She'd used every detail I'd shared, the date, the time, the package, even the bridal suite, to make it sound like she'd been planning this wedding for months. Mom, that's impossible. Melody wasn't even engaged when I called Vivian." "I know, honey. The whole family is talking about it. The timeline doesn't make sense." I called Mrs. Patterson back, demanding answers. "The other bride's mother claims they had a verbal agreement for September 15th dating back 6 months, she said defensively. "She has documentation of venue visits and email inquiries." "What kind of documentation?" "Photos of her daughter at the venue, saved email conversations about pricing." Later, I would discover that Vivian had driven to Rosewood Manor the day after our phone call, taken photos of Melody posing around the grounds, and backdated emails using her legal knowledge of digital forensics. She'd built an entire fake paper trail in 48 hours. "She's lying," I told Mrs. Patterson, "and you know it. Check your own records. I've been calling you monthly for almost a year. I understand your frustration, but we have to protect ourselves legally. Ms. Hartwell is a very prominent attorney, and she's threatened to sue us for breach of contract, discriminatory booking practices, and intentional interference with business relations. We're a small family business. We can't afford that kind of legal battle. That's when I realized what had really happened. Vivian hadn't just stolen our date. She'd used her law degree and reputation to bully a small business into submission. She'd made threats she probably couldn't back up legally, but Mrs. Patterson didn't know that. At the family barbecue that weekend, the dynamics were immediately different. Everyone was walking on eggshells, stealing glances between Melody and me. My cousins knew something was wrong, but nobody wanted to address the elephant in the room. Vivian cornered me by the dessert table with fake sympathy dripping from her voice. I heard about your venue situation, she said, not meeting my eyes. These things happen in the wedding industry. Maybe it's a sign you should have a simpler wedding anyway. Not everyone needs such an extravagant affair. The condescension in her tone made my blood boil. She was talking to me like I was a child who'd been denied a toy at the store. Melody flounced by in a designer dress I recognized from Instagram, $400 for something she'd probably wear once. She was gushing to our cousins about her sudden wedding plans. I've wanted to get married at Rosewood since I was little, she said, which was complete bullshit. She'd never mentioned the venue once in her life. Mommy made sure I got the perfect date. September 15th is going to be absolutely magical. She emphasized the date like a knife twist, making sure I heard it. Isn't that the same date you wanted? My cousin David asked innocently. Melody shrugged. Great minds think alike, I guess. Though we booked first, so that was the moment I decided to play the long game. Standing there, watching Melody bask in her stolen venue while Vivian smirked behind her wine glass, I made a silent promise. This wasn't over. I smiled sweetly at Vivian. You're absolutely right. Everything happens for a reason. For the next 2 years, I watched and waited like a spider spinning an invisible web. Derek and I had a beautiful wedding at Mountain View Farm, a rustic venue that actually suited our personalities better than the formal manner. The ceremony was in a wildflower meadow with the mountains as our backdrop. It was intimate, personal, and cost half as much as Rosewood would have, but I never forgot what Vivian had done. More importantly, I never forgot the smug satisfaction on her face when she'd told me to settle for something simpler. I kept tabs on Melody through social media, studying every post like I was preparing for a doctoral dissertation. The girl was obsessed with status and posted constantly about her future wedding plans, her dream honeymoon destinations, her ideal dress designers. She documented every bridal magazine she bought, every wedding show she attended, every venue she toured. There was one location that appeared in her posts more than any other, going back to her college years: the Chateau Belmont, a castle-like estate 2 hours upstate that only hosted 12 weddings per year. It was the most exclusive venue in the region, with a year-long waiting list and pricing that started at $30,000 just for the venue rental. Melody had been posting photos of Chateau Belmont since she was 19, calling it her future wedding venue in every caption. She'd drive there just to take Instagram photos in front of the gates, claiming it was going to be the most exclusive wedding ever someday. She'd screenshot magazine articles about celebrities who'd married there and post them with captions like, "This will be me in a few years." The chateau was everything Melody valued: expensive, exclusive, and guaranteed to make her the envy of everyone she knew. It was also completely out of her league financially, but that had never stopped her from dreaming publicly about it. When Melody and her boyfriend Cameron finally got engaged last month after 3 years together, I watched her Instagram stories obsessively. She posted a video tour of Chateau Belmont the day after Cameron proposed, with the caption, "Finally going to make this dream come true, calling tomorrow to book our date." She'd clearly been planning this moment for years, waiting for Cameron to propose so she could claim her prize venue. That's when I struck. I called the chateau at exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, before they'd even finished their first cup of coffee. "Good morning, this is Chateau Belmont. How may I help you? I'd like to inquire about availability for a wedding next September," I told the coordinator, my voice steady and professional. "Certainly. Let me check our calendar. We have September 8th and September 22nd available." Perfect. Melody's Instagram had shown a screenshot of her calendar app with September 22nd, circled in red and labeled Dream Wedding Date, Chateau Belmont. "I'll take September 22nd, I said without hesitation. "I'd like to put down a deposit today." "Wonderful. Our standard deposit is $15,000 to secure the date, with the balance due 60 days before your event." I'd been saving for this moment for 2 years. While Derek and I lived in our tiny apartment, driving used cars and cooking dinner at home every night, I'd been building what we privately called our Justice Fund. We had exactly $25,000 sitting in a separate savings account, money we'd squirreled away by working overtime, selling things we didn't need, and living like monks. "I can do 20,000, I said. "I want to ensure the date is absolutely locked in, with no possibility of cancellation or schedule changes." "That's very generous. But 15 is our standard." 20, I insisted firmly. "I've heard stories about venues double booking dates, and I want this contract to be ironclad. Money talks, and I want mine to speak very loudly." The coordinator was quiet for a moment, probably calculating how much extra profit they'd make. "We can certainly accommodate that. A $20,000 deposit would give you our platinum priority status, with additional perks and guarantees." An hour later, I had a signed contract for September 22nd at Chateau Belmont, with more legal protections than most people have for buying a house. The contract explicitly stated that the date could not be transferred, canceled, or modified without written consent from both parties. Then I waited. 3 days later, Melody's Instagram story showed her crying in her car outside the chateau's gates. "I can't believe this happened," she sobbed to the camera, her perfect makeup streaking down her face. "Someone booked my dream venue literally hours before I called. They won't even put me on a waiting list because the other couple paid such a huge deposit that they have platinum status." She filmed herself walking up to the main entrance, only to be turned away by security. They said the other bride has exclusive booking rights for that entire weekend. I've been dreaming about this place for 6 years, and now it's gone. I screenshot the video and saved it to my phone, along with every other post from her meltdown. Evidence for later. For the next several weeks, I watched Melody's increasingly frantic posts about trying to find a replacement venue. She toured every high-end location within 100 miles, but nothing compared to the chateau. Everything was either too common, too small, too expensive, or already booked by other brides who'd planned ahead. Meanwhile, I started planning phase 2 of my revenge. I created a fake Instagram account under the name Elena Vasquez, complete with a backstory about being a marketing consultant from Chicago. I followed all the family members, including Melody, and started posting lifestyle content that would blend in naturally. Then I began sharing photos from Chateau Belmont's website and social media, talking about my upcoming wedding there. So blessed to have booked the chateau for September 22nd, I posted, using hashtags I knew Melody followed religiously. Can't wait for the most magical day ever. Chateau Belmont, dream wedding, arch blessed. Within hours, Melody had found the post and left a comment. OMG, so jealous. That's literally my dream venue. How did you manage to book it? I called the same day and they said it was taken, I replied publicly, twisting the knife a little deeper. Just got really lucky with timing. Had to put down a huge deposit, but so worth it for my dream wedding. Sometimes you have to invest in your dreams, you know? Worth it. That night, Melody posted a bitter story about fake people on Instagram showing off their perfect lives and rich girls who don't appreciate what they have. The comments on her post became increasingly savage as her friends started pointing out that she'd had years to book the chateau if it was really that important to her. Girl, you've been posting about this place since college, one friend wrote. Why didn't you just save up and book it earlier? Melody's response was exactly what I expected. It's not that simple. Do you know how expensive it is? My mom was helping me figure out financing. More evidence that even with Vivian's lawyer salary, they couldn't actually afford the venue Melody had been fantasizing about. At Christmas dinner, the family drama reached its peak. Melody spent the entire meal complaining about her venue struggles, while Vivian made increasingly pointed comments about people being unreasonable with their wedding expectations and not understanding how the world works. Maybe you should consider something more modest, my mom suggested gently, trying to diffuse the tension. Vivian's face darkened like a storm cloud. Melody deserves the best. Some people just don't understand the importance of maintaining family standards and creating memorable experiences. She shot a look at me that could have melted steel. My grandmother, bless her, decided to stir the pot. What about that lovely manor where you had your wedding, Melody? The one with the roses? That was just the venue, Grandma, Melody said dismissively. The chateau is in a completely different league. It's where celebrities get married. That's when my cousin David chimed in, completely oblivious to the minefield he was stepping into. Didn't you guys book Elena's dream venue for your wedding a couple years ago? Maybe you should ask Elena to return the favor and hook Melody up with contacts at her venue. The table went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the next county. Vivian's face cycled through about 6 different emotions before settling on barely controlled rage. That was completely different, she said through gritted teeth. There was a legitimate scheduling conflict that had to be resolved through proper legal channels. Wasn't Elena there first, though? David continued, digging his own grave with enthusiasm. I remember her calling everyone about getting Rosewood Manor, like months before Melody even got engaged. My uncle tried to change the subject, but David was on a roll. Actually, wasn't the timeline kind of weird? Elena called us about booking her venue, then like 2 weeks later Melody was suddenly engaged and had the same venue on the same date? What are the odds of that? I spoke up for the first time all evening, my voice sweet as honey. It's fine, David. Everything worked out for the best. Our barn wedding was absolutely perfect. Sometimes the universe has better plans than we do. Vivian looked like she wanted to strangle me with the Christmas garland. After dinner, she cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping with dishes, her lawyer mask firmly in place. I know what you're doing, she hissed, keeping her voice low so the others wouldn't hear. What am I doing? I asked innocently, continuing to dry the wine glasses. You booked that chateau to spite Melody. This is petty and childish, and it's hurting an innocent girl who's just trying to plan her wedding. I turned to face her fully, dropping all pretense of politeness for the first time in 2 years. You threatened to sue my wedding venue to steal my date. You used your law degree to bully a small business into screwing over their actual customer. You built a fake paper trail to make it look like Melody had booked first. And then you told me to have a simpler wedding because I wasn't worth an extravagant affair. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That was business, she finally sputtered. Venues double book all the time. We were protecting Melody's interests. So is this, I replied sweetly. I saved up for 2 years to afford my dream venue. Just like you taught me, sometimes you have to be willing to pay more to get what you want. Sometimes you have to use every advantage you have. You're not even using it. How do you know? Maybe Derek and I are planning a vow renewal. Maybe I want to celebrate our 2nd anniversary somewhere special. Maybe I'm going to auction it off for charity. My contract doesn't require me to justify my plans to you. The truth was, I hadn't decided what to do with the booking yet. Part of me wanted to actually use it just to spite them, throw the most extravagant vow renewal in family history. Part of me was considering selling it to someone else at cost, just to ensure Melody couldn't have it. But as I stood there watching Vivian's face turn purple with rage, a better idea started forming. You can't be serious about keeping it just to hurt Melody. Why not? You kept my venue just to help her. Turnabout is fair play. That's completely different. No, it's not. You saw an opportunity to give your daughter something she wanted, and you took it regardless of who got hurt. I'm doing exactly the same thing. But you're hurting an innocent person. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Innocent? Melody knew exactly what you'd done. She gloated about having my venue at the barbecue. She emphasized the date to make sure I heard it. She posted about her dream wedding on Instagram knowing I'd see it. She's not innocent, she's complicit. Vivian stood there for a long moment, probably trying to figure out if she could threaten me the same way she'd threatened Mrs. Patterson. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "Nothing you can give me," I said. "You can't undo what you did. You can't give me back my original wedding date or the venue I dreamed about since I was 12. You can't erase the months of stress and heartbreak you caused. This isn't about what I want anymore. It's about consequences. So you're going to destroy my daughter's wedding to make a point? I'm going to let your daughter experience exactly what you put me through. The disappointment, the scrambling to find alternatives, the feeling of having your dreams crushed by someone with more money and connections. Maybe it'll teach her some empathy. She's learned her lesson. Isn't that enough? Has she? Because from what I've seen on her social media, she's learned that sometimes life isn't fair, not that her actions have consequences. She's playing the victim, not accepting responsibility. I dried the last glass and hung up the towel. You taught me something important 2 years ago, Vivian. You taught me that the world belongs to people who are willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. You taught me that having money and connections means you can take things that don't belong to you. You taught me that the only thing that matters is winning. I headed toward the door, then turned back. So thank you. I couldn't have done this without everything you taught me. 2 weeks later, I put my plan into motion. I called the chateau and spoke to their event coordinator. I need to discuss some options for my September 22nd booking, I told her. Of course. How can I help you? I've had a change of heart about the wedding. My husband and I eloped in Vegas last month. Very spontaneous, very romantic. But I still have this beautiful venue booked, and I'd hate for it to go to waste. Oh my, that's quite a development. What would you like to do with the booking? I'd like to transfer it to a charity auction, if that's possible. I want the proceeds to go to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for their Pediatric Cancer Research Fund. The coordinator was thrilled. It was unprecedented, but they were happy to work with me on the details. The hospital could auction off the venue booking to raise funds, and the winning bidder would get a chateau wedding at whatever price they bid, likely far less than the normal cost. This is incredibly generous, she said. I'm sure the hospital will be overjoyed. Just make sure the auction is well publicized, I said. I want as many people as possible to know about it. When the auction went live 2 weeks later, I made sure Melody saw it immediately. I shared the link on my fake Instagram account with a carefully crafted caption. Had to cancel my chateau wedding due to a surprise elopement. We couldn't wait. But so happy it's going to help sick kids instead. Sometimes things work out exactly how they're supposed to. Hoping some lucky couple gets their dream wedding while supporting an amazing cause. Church Chateau Belmont, Church Charity Auction, Pediatric Cancer, Church Dreams Come True. I tagged it with every wedding hashtag Melody followed, ensuring it would show up in her feed. Melody commented within minutes. Wait, can people actually bid on this? How much are bids starting at? The starting bid was $10,000. Still a third of the normal venue cost, but more than Melody could afford. I knew this because she'd been posting about her wedding budget struggles for months, complaining about the cost of everything from flowers to photography. Starting at $10K but could go higher depending on interest, I replied. Such an amazing opportunity for someone. I watched her Instagram stories document her desperate scramble over the next few days. She started a GoFundMe titled, Help Melody Get Her Dream Wedding Venue. She asked family members for loans. She posted about selling her designer handbag collection. She even considered getting a second job or taking out a personal loan. Meanwhile, word about the charity auction spread through social media and local news. The story of a bride donating her dream venue to help sick children resonated with people, and the bidding became fierce. 5 different couples were actively bidding, driving the price up incrementally. I watched the auction page obsessively, seeing Melody's username appear in the bidding history, only to disappear when the price got too high for her. She posted increasingly frantic Instagram stories as the auction progressed. Currently at $15,000 and I'm tapped out, she said, crying in her car again. I can't believe my dream venue is going to slip away again. This is so unfair. The comments on her posts were not sympathetic. Girl, it's going to charity, one friend wrote. Maybe focus on that instead of feeling sorry for yourself. You've been complaining about wedding venues for months, another added. Maybe take this as a sign to spend less and appreciate what you have. The most brutal comment came from a stranger. Imagine being upset that sick kids are getting money instead of you getting a fancy party. But the comment that really drove the point home came from our mutual cousin Rebecca. Weren't you guys the ones who took Elena's venue a couple years ago? This feels like karma. Melody's response was defensive and revealing. That was completely different. We had a legitimate claim to that venue. This is just someone being petty. Several people called her out for that comment, asking how taking someone else's wedding venue could ever be legitimate. Melody ended up deleting the entire post. The auction lasted 2 weeks. I documented every moment, watching Melody's hope turn to desperation, turn to bitter resignation. Her post became increasingly angry and entitled. I don't understand why the universe keeps blocking me from having my dream wedding, she wrote. I'm a good person. I deserve this. The final bidding war was between a young couple from Philadelphia and an older pair renewing their vows for their 25th anniversary. The price climbed to $28,000, nearly double what the hospital had hoped for. Melody posted one final story after the auction ended, sobbing harder than I'd ever seen her cry. I can't believe my dream venue went to charity instead of me, she wept. I know it's going to a good cause, but this was supposed to be my wedding. I've been planning this since college. Why does everything I want always go to someone else? The comment section exploded. People were horrified by her selfishness, pointing out that she was literally upset about children with cancer getting funding for treatment. How can you be mad about kids getting help? One person wrote. Maybe this is why you don't get what you want. Another added. Your priorities are backwards. But it was my cousin David's comment that really sealed Melody's fate. Didn't you take Elena's wedding venue 2 years ago and now you're mad someone else got yours? Do you not see the irony here? That comment got dozens of likes and sparked a thread where other family members started sharing their memories of the Rosewood Manor situation. The whole story came out in the comments. How Vivian had pumped me for information, threatened the venue with legal action, and stolen our date for Melody's last-minute engagement. So Elena's dream venue got taken and given to Melody, but now Elena's supposed to feel bad that Melody can't have her dream venue? Rebecca wrote. Make it make sense. Within hours, the post had hundreds of comments, mostly from strangers who'd found it through shares and hashtags. Melody was being dragged across the internet for her entitled attitude and lack of self-awareness. She deleted her entire Instagram account the next day. 3 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Vivian. We need to talk. Now. I ignored it. She called 5 times over the next hour. I sent each call to voicemail. Her messages got increasingly desperate. Answer your phone. I know you're getting these messages. This has gone far enough. You're destroying my daughter's reputation. Finally, she showed up at my apartment building at 8 p.m., buzzing my intercom relentlessly until I answered. You've made your point, she said when I met her in the lobby. Now fix this. Fix what exactly? Melody's wedding, her reputation, the damage you've caused. I almost laughed. I didn't cause any damage. I donated my venue booking to charity. I have no control over what other people say about it. You orchestrated this entire thing to humiliate her. I donated $20,000 worth of wedding venue time to help children with cancer. How is that humiliating anyone? Don't play innocent. You knew she wanted that venue. You knew the auction would be public. You knew people would find out about what happened 2 years ago. Actually, I didn't know that last part. I just wanted to do something good with the venue since I didn't need it anymore. If people are connecting it to what you did to me, that's their own conclusion. Vivian's face was flushed with anger. Give my daughter her venue back. I can't. It's been sold at auction. The new couple has a contract. Then bid on another venue for her. You clearly have money to throw around. All $20,000 of my savings went to the chateau deposit. I'm broke now, just like any normal person would be after spending that much money. I'll reimburse you, whatever it costs. I considered this for exactly 3 seconds. No, why not? Haven't you hurt her enough? Have I hurt her? Or have I just refused to enable her? Melody is 26 years old. If she wanted that venue, she should have saved up and booked it herself instead of expecting mommy to steal someone else's date again. You're being vindictive and cruel. I'm being exactly as vindictive and cruel as you were to me. The only difference is that this time, someone else benefited from the collateral damage. Vivian stared at me for a long moment, probably calculating whether she could threaten me the way she'd threatened Mrs. Patterson. This isn't over, she said finally. Yes, it is, I replied calmly, unless you want me to start talking publicly about what you did 2 years ago. I have documentation. I have witnesses. I have Mrs. Patterson's contact information, and she remembers every detail of how you bullied her into breaking my contract. Vivian's face went pale. You wouldn't. Try me. Your daughter's reputation is already damaged from her own social media posts. Do you really want people to know the full story of how she got her last venue? Vivian left without another word. The charity auction raised $28,000 for pediatric cancer research. The winning bidders were Emma and James, a young couple who sent me a handwritten thank you card for making their dream wedding possible at a price they could afford. You'll never know how much this means to us, Emma wrote. We've been saving for 3 years for our wedding, and we never thought we'd be able to afford somewhere as beautiful as the chateau. The fact that our wedding is also helping sick children makes it even more special. They included photos from their engagement shoot at the venue. They looked so happy, so genuinely grateful for the opportunity. It reminded me why I'd made the right choice. Melody eventually found a different venue, Sunset Country Club, a nice enough place that cost a quarter of what the chateau would have. Her wedding was beautiful from what I saw in the Instagram photos she posted after reactivating her account with heavy privacy settings. But every single post caption mentioned how it wasn't her dream venue and how she'd had to settle for second choice and make the best of a difficult situation. Even on what should have been the happiest day of her life, she couldn't stop playing the victim. The wedding photos showed a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. In candid shots, she looked genuinely miserable. Vivian stood stiffly beside her in family photos, both of them going through the motions of happiness without feeling it. 6 months later, Derek and I used some of our rebuilt savings for a romantic anniversary trip to Paris. We visited Real Chateau, took beautiful photos at Versailles, and ate at restaurants we could never afford back home. I may have posted a few photos on Instagram with captions about living our best life, and sometimes the best revenge is happiness, and grateful for all the unexpected blessings that come from staying true to your values. Melody unfollowed me within hours of my first Paris post. A year later, the consequences of Vivian's actions finally caught up with her professionally. Someone, I have no idea who, compiled a detailed report about her pattern of using legal threats to benefit her family and friends. The report included testimony from Mrs. Patterson at Rosewood Manor, documentation of similar incidents with other small businesses, and evidence of her misusing her law firm's letterhead for personal threats. The State Bar Association opened an investigation. Vivian's biggest client, a tech company that prided itself on ethical business practices, terminated their contract after the story was picked up by the local business journal. Her law firm quietly asked her to take early retirement to avoid the negative publicity. She moved to Florida 2 months later. Melody's marriage lasted exactly 18 months. According to family gossip, Cameron got tired of her constant complaints about how their wedding wasn't good enough, how their apartment wasn't nice enough, how their honeymoon wasn't expensive enough. He filed for divorce, claiming irreconcilable differences. But everyone knew the real issue was Melody's inability to appreciate anything she had while obsessing over what she didn't. She moved back in with her parents in Florida, where she posts bitter Instagram stories about how some people get everything handed to them, and how life isn't fair to people with high standards. Last month, Derek and I celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary. We're planning a trip to Italy for our 5th anniversary, and we're considering renting a villa in Tuscany for the week. We've learned that the most satisfying revenge isn't taking something away from someone. It's building a life so good that their petty cruelties become irrelevant. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that moment in Mrs. Patterson's voice when she told me my venue had been stolen. I think about Melody's smug face at the barbecue. I think about Vivian telling me to settle for something simpler. And then I think about Emma and James dancing at their chateau wedding, about the $28,000 raised for children with cancer, about the lesson in consequences that Melody learned too late. Derek asks me sometimes if I regret what I did, if I think I went too far. I tell him the truth. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that some people only learn empathy when they experience pain themselves. I regret that Vivian raised a daughter who thinks the world owes her everything she wants. But I don't regret the action itself, because sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to show them what it feels like to be powerless. And sometimes, the best way to honor your own dreams is to make sure someone else's come true instead.